In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Oh, that I could a sin once see. We paint the devil foul, yet he hath some good, all agree. Surprised? I know I was when I first read this opening sentence from George Herbert's poem, Sin 2. We tend to think that the devil is the embodiment of pure evil. But George Herbert continues, sin is flat opposite the Almighty. Seeing, it lacks the good of virtue and of being. Sin lacks the good of virtue and of existence itself. Christians have long pondered the problem of evil since Jesus' time, and before that, the Hebrew scriptures show the Hebrew people wrestled with it for even longer. There are some decent explanations, some satisfying, some not so. But the one that continues to hold water across the ages is the concept of sin as nothing, nothingness. Sin as an unthing, the very undoing of God's things. Sin, if you will follow St. Augustine's teaching, sin is like a hole in a sweater. The thing that we name as a thing, whole, is in fact a nothing. It's literally nothing. A hole is nothing. It's a lack of sweater, if you will. Or it's like the cold. We can't measure cold per se. We can only measure how much heat there is. And so what we perceive as cold is really the absence of heat. Does that make sense? Sin is just like this. It's not an opposing force to God, but it's definitely flat opposite the Almighty. Sin is a hole, the absence of existence, the tearing or corruption of a good thing. You see, God made the universe, and it behaves according to the way God put it together. And if Jesus and the gospel, according to Paul, reveal to us anything, it's that all the parts of the universe matter. And if the image of God as Trinity reveals to us anything, it's that we're meant to be created, to be connected. That in our connection is God's love. Well, the thumbprint of the Maker is all over creation and all over us. Because of how God made the universe, we thrive when we are connected in right relationship, and we wither when we're cut off. When the nothingness of sin gapes where the good stuff of connection ought to be. This is the chasm that the rich man in our parable today faces. The chasm is the spiritual reality of his sin, of his cut-offness. You see, money has obscured his spiritual and ethical vision to the point that his relationship with a fellow human being was cut off. I mean, he couldn't see Lazarus. I mean, he could see Lazarus visually, right? But he couldn't see Lazarus's humanity. He couldn't even see his suffering. All he saw was an object to do his beck and call. Luke points out that even the dogs are more ethical in this story than the rich man. They cared for his wounds. Well, Behind the veil of this life, as our story continues, God's reality is revealed. Throughout his life, the rich man practiced not seeing people like Lazarus, so why in death should he be any different? So blind is he can't even see that the circumstances themselves have changed, that Lazarus' reality is much more than being an object to be ordered around. And all the rich man still can see is himself. And this opens wide the chasm. This isn't punishment by God. It's the reality of how God's creation works. And as Abraham says in our story today, he had Moses and the prophets as kind of a user's manual, if you will, but he didn't pay attention to it. Well, crucially, the gospel writer Luke and Paul, the author of our epistle this morning, are not shaming those of us who have much. They're not shaming us. They are warning us. They are genuinely concerned for our spiritual state because, as they point out, we can easily be distracted and dependent upon our worldly goods. No, Luke and Paul are not shaming us. As we talked about in our Bible study earlier this week among the staff, they want us to have chasm insurance. Okay, it's not the best joke I've ever come up with, but they want us to take hold of the life that is real life. They want us to take hold of God's reality, fight the good fight of the faith by pursuing righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, gentleness. As Paul writes, we are to do good, be rich in good works, generous and ready to share. Love is an action verb. Well, you looking for some ways to do that? Conveniently, today is both the start of our stewardship season and our celebration, our Doers in Action extravaganza, celebrating all the many ways that we at St. James's do good works. Our lay leaders and Nancy Warman worked hard to bring the extravaganza, which I'm sure you can still see over next door in Valentine Hall. It was bustling during the 10:15 hour, joyful, people bopping around, checking out what other people are doing around the church. And our annual giving committee with Suzanne Hall have worked hard to bring us our stewardship season for this next month, helping us, encouraging us to give generously, as Paul talks about in his letter today. You don't need me to tell you that giving our time, our talent, and our treasure are all opportunities to show thanksgiving and praise to God for the gifts we have received from God's hand, opportunities to celebrate the good that God is doing here at St. James's. They're opportunities to witness to each other and to the world what Christ's love really looks like. And more than that, there are opportunities to co-create good things with our Maker, to build good things over the chasms of our hearts, our homes, and our communities. Join us. Join us in doing good works. Join us in giving generously. God knows we all need it. Amen.